If you guys tuned into it, we appreciate you. If you tuned into any of the content in general, we appreciate you. It was a lot of fun. We had a blast. From Thursday at DraftKings to Friday streaming day 2, and then Saturday streaming day 3. A lot of things happen. A lot of reactions happen. I posted my Isaac Tesla video, and a lot of people did not like that. And I'm here to provide some more context to that, why I felt that way, because this isn't an excuse, but the reaction videos I put out, a lot of it is it's right away. So it's a live reaction. And I'm not saying that to say I've changed my opinion significantly, really at all. But there's some things that when days go by, you're like, yeah, I understand that. Things kind of just click. It's like when you get in an argument with somebody and then a couple days later, you're like, I could see where they were coming from. It's kind of what I dealt with over the weekend. And I will say, the first round pick, I have not changed my stance on. I love Tyreek Williams. I always thought he was a borderline first round pick. I thought he was an early second round pick, but again, who gives a damn? These guys, once you get to the draft, you don't know where any of these guys are going. You just don't. You think we've learned that already, but it's just how it is. And Tyreek was someone that we all expected to go early second, but you started seeing more reports, and it got confirmed when the Bills took a nose tackle. Like, I think it was the second round. They took a nose tackle, and Tyreek went to the podium and told the Detroit Lions media that the Bills told him if he was there, they would have taken him. So now I think the biggest pushback for people with Tyreek Williams was it was a reach. I think him saying that and saying the Bills would have taken him in the first round if he was there should quiet the reach noise. That should be no longer really a conversation. So I don't think it was a reach. So I'm glad we got that out the way. I mean, even Tyreek admitted the Bills would have taken him. So let's just look at the player. I love the pick. I love the player. I think he's someone that is going to come in and going to be able to contribute right away. You're not going to have a Lee McNeil. So you have a player that can play that 3-tech, can play where a Lee McNeil usually plays while he's out. Now, when you look big picture, Tyreek Williams can also play nose tackle, which that's where he's probably going to play most of the time in the NFL. He's a really athletic nose tackle, but someone that has some upside getting after the quarterback. I mean, 5 sacks as a freshman at OSU, and he's gotten in better shape since then. So what he can do against the run it doesn't really need to be spoken on. And that's what you're looking for in your nose tackle. That's what the identity of the Lions defense is, stopping the run. And especially in your nose tackle, you want him to set the tone there. And he's one of the best run defenders in college football. Super athletic, freak athlete. Like, I think there's a lot of upside there. And he's your DJ Reader replacement. And he's cheaper. And you got him for 4 plus that 5th year option. So Tyreek, I love the pick. I did. I was hoping the Lions, people had him. Oh, you can get him in the 40s or the 50s, guys. It's just this is how the draft goes. Obviously, Brad had him significantly higher on his draft board. They were looking at defensive tackles. I'm not shocked they took a defensive tackle, and I'm not shocked they took a defensive tackle like Tyreek Williams because it's easy to fall in love with him. If you hear him speak and kind of what he values in his mentality, he's a film junkie. He's a grinder. He's a hard worker, loves football, and he's just a good human being. I mean, he plays the game. He talked about it in some interviews here. You can go check it out on Detroit Lions or YouTube channel. But getting to know him, the human, I can see why they fell in love with him. So I really do. I like the Tyreek Williams pick. Now, when we get to the second round, and you get to the 25th pick in the second round, and you're sitting there, the Lions are sitting there, and I think they traded up 3 spots. I believe they traded up a couple of picks, basically. They traded up with the Broncos. I'm pretty sure Broncos moved to 60. They went to 57. They basically moved back 100 picks roughly. They threw up a 4th round pick, but they essentially moved back 100 picks in later rounds. And they got Tate Ratledge, the offensive lineman from Georgia. Started 37 games at right guard. Had a great combine. If you watch him on tape, he looks like a lion. That, like, the type of player they value, he does that. Nasty, physical. He's obviously got some athleticism, even at his height. I mean, he's 6'7", 308 pounds. So he's tough. He's very tough. And he's honestly, as a pass blocker, very good. He's well-rounded too. So I like, again, this is what I think people get mixed up with names. And I'm trying to get away from that as I cover the Lions here. I look at positions. They went defensive tackle and offensive guard. Not mad at that. Not mad at it. I'm okay with those positions. They needed them. And Brad talked about this in the post-draft press conference, how they wanted to get younger at offensive line. So, I think drafting Tate Ratledge, that dude is going to be, he's going to be a starter. He's going to be your Graham Glasgow replacement. And I think he's someone that can make an impact right away. And just because you have Christian Mahogany, I think the important thing to remember is just because Mahogany played well last year doesn't mean he's guaranteed to be the future guard. I think you need to see more of a sample size from Graham. So it's not like the Lions were going to go into this draft saying, all right, we don't need 2 guards. We only need 1 because because Christian is our future guard. You've only seen 1.5 games out of Christian. So we need a bigger sample size. You got to continuously get better and add more players to increase competition, which I think is important. So they added 2 guards to compete with Christian Mahogany, and it's only going to make him better. And it just so happens that one of those players, Miles Frazier, which I'll get to in a little bit, fell in the same kind of circumstances Christian Mahogany fell. He fell in the same way. I mean, Mahogany fell all the way to like the 6th round too. And so did Miles Frazier, which I'll get to. I really like the Miles Frazier pick. But I like Tate Ratledge, man. He looks, I mean, the mullet, the stash. I mean, what do you like about him? He plays right guard. So first two picks, not mad at. I'm not mad at. Defensive tackle, offensive guard. That was fine. Then you get to the 3rd round, which this one, okay. All right, let me add some context to this. All right. They traded up 33, 32 spots. And they gave up the 3rd round pick, 2 more 3rd round picks next year. And then they received 2 6ths. So it's kind of like they gave up 2/3, but they got back 2 6th round picks. So it's kind of like an exchange of picks. You move back 3 rounds and you lose your 3rds next year. It is a lot of capital. I mean, it just is, quite frankly. You did move up a lot, though. They moved up 30-something spots. So to move up that much, you're going to have to give up, what you got to give up, especially if you really want the player. You're not as concerned with the capital. You're more concerned with just getting the player. All right. And they drafted Isaac Tesla. All right, the wide receiver from Arkansas, 6'4", ran a fast 40. Very, very intriguing prospect. Great hands, playmaker. When you watch him on tape, Brad spoke on this too in the press conference, but didn't get the ball a ton. But when he got the ball, he made plays. He did. I'm not going to argue with that. I really like the player. I like the player on paper. And that's why I think the video I posted kind of, it's missing some context because I was just, I was being emotional and I didn't make sure to remind people that it's not that I don't like the player. I don't. Or I do. I do like the player. It's mainly what they gave up to get him. That's mainly the problem to me. And I know before anyone says, well, Jeff, based on the trade chart, it's a pretty even trade. I mean, if you think about it, guys, 3rd round picks, when you have a GM like Brad Holmes, are pretty valuable. He finds very good players in the 3rd round. So that's kind of the standard I'm holding Isaac Tesla to at this point. I'm just being honest. And as much as I love Isaac Tesla, the expectations rise when you're a 3rd round pick. We can all agree. The higher you're picked, the higher your expectations are. So I think it's fair. I like Isaac Tesla, like I said, but if you trade up that much to get him and select him in the 3rd round, I think it's fair to expect Isaac Tesla to be really good. That's kind of the standard. I think it's fair you hold him to. You know what I mean? This isn't a 4th or 5th or 6th, 7th round pick. Like, I'm not holding Ahmed Hassanin to like crazy expectations. If he's good, great. If he's not, it's a 6th round pick. Isaac Tesla's a 3rd round pick. So with that comes a little higher expectations. You know, not that he has to be Kirby Joseph level of player, but Lee McNeil was a 3rd round pick. You know, it's not even just, I keep saying Kirby, but it's more than that. You can also bring up, I think, if he was a 3rd round pick. Could be wrong on that. But that's what you're looking at this like. For me, just speaking for myself. So Isaac Tesla, again, I like the player, man. I like his size. I like his speed. I like how he's going to complement J-Mo and Amon-Ra. I think he's someone that will fit in very nicely for Tim Patrick for the future. And I think also he's someone that fits the culture. The one thing that I when I look at Isaac Tesla, I'm like, that's what the Lions definitely value, and he's really good at is his run blocking. He's physical. He does a lot of dirty work. He's obviously a local kid, so I root for him. Like, this, what I want to make very clear. I'm not rooting against him. That would be shitty, and that's not. I'm not doing that. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling you this, man. If you trade up 30-something spots in the 3rd round to take somebody, I think it's fair to have high expectations. Not high, but higher than if you were to go a round or 2 or 3 later. It's just how it is. You know, he's not a 1st round pick. He's not a 2nd round pick, but 3rd round picks, man, especially with Brad Holmes. You're looking, I know it's not always the normal thing, but it's the NFL, man. You have guys coming out every year that are 3rd round picks that end up being really good, or at least good. But if he's just serviceable, I think it's fair to be like, really? You traded up 30 picks for someone that's just okay? Like, even Motown Mitch, he says, 3rd round pick expectations. What I expect a good backup that can develop into a starter in the 3rd, not a starter today. That's 1st and 2nd rounders. I never said I want him to be a starter today, but what I did say is I expect him at some point to be pretty good. I mean, or at least just good. You know, if he gets you 300 yards a year, it's a failed pick, in my opinion. You know what I mean? It's just not really what you're expecting. You don't. That's the standard you hold 3rd round picks to, I think, in my opinion, based on what Brad has shown us throughout his tenure. Not saying he has to hit on every single 3rd round pick, but when you take guys like Lee McNeil, that turns out to be a very good player, you take Kirby Joseph, who turned out to be a very good player, and you're looking around the NFL and you're seeing Les Snead with the Rams find really talented players in the 3rd round. You look at, other GMs, Brad Veach, Howie Roseman, find really good players in the 3rd round. I think it's fair to be like, all right, if you're a 3rd round pick and our GM likes you and he's really good at what he does, then we're expecting you to be pretty good. I don't think that's a crazy thing to say. I don't think we should lower expectations now to like save our own ass. Like, oh, it's all right. Just let him develop. Like, yeah, I'm going to let him develop. But if you trade up 30-something spots to grab him, that's just the expectations that come with it, unfortunately. So I'm not saying it was a massive reach. I'm just saying that's just the reality. I'm not even going to get into that. I just think the trade was a little, rich for me. It's just, you're trading up 30-something picks, multiple 3rd round picks for next year, which next year you can argue is a better draft class. So that's just what I'm holding Isaac Tesla to. It's, again, I like the player. It's just the trade. I'm like, okay, all right. He really likes Isaac Tesla. So I'm excited to see what he turns into. I think it's I'm excited to see what he turns into. But that's where I was coming from with it. Again, I mean, Lucas brought Isaac Tesla to our attention. So after that, we were like, ooh, like Isaac Tesla. But then what happens after you draft Isaac Tesla is multiple edges come off the board. And this is what I wanted to get into too. We understand that Brad has his board. Other GMs have their board. So when Brad takes a player, I already have the answer to why he took a player. I already know the answer. It's because, Isaac Tesla was higher on his board than Josiah Stewart, Princely. Who's the other one? There's more, Savion Jones. There's other guys there, but those are kind of a couple. I guess you can go through here. I have it right here. Mike Green, because Mike Green went after Tate Ratledge. But again, I'm not as bad about that. But you're looking at the third round. Okay, I'll read it off. And I can show you guys this. So let me pull this up. All right. Now this is again just the truth. This is what's going to happen. And this comes with expectations, right? Isaac Tesla, you draft him at 70. Landon Jackson goes off the board. Pat Bryant, of course, but I'm out to pick again. If you like Isaac Tesla over Pat Bryant, I'm not going to fight you on it. That's fine. But Princely, Jordan Birch, you keep going. Josiah Stewart, Savion Jones. So you had about 4 edges come off the board in the same round. Now, this is when Brad comes to the podium and he's talking to the media and he says, like, you guys are, it's your guys' concern, not really necessarily ours, about this whole edge thing and finding the answer to the other side of Hutch. And he's just, these guys aren't high on our board. And these people that talk about edge don't watch film. And they don't have as much information as we do. I think a lot of that's actually true. And it's a lot of it are fair. A lot of what he's saying is fair. So I'm not even going to go at that point. I just think people are going to always look back on drafts. The reality is people are always going to look back on drafts and look at Lions draft picks. And every team does this. And look after those draft picks and see players that end up working out, because it's always hindsight 2020. And that's going to be the same case with this one, unfortunately. If Jordan Birch ends up being a really good player for Arizona, people are going to look at Brad and complain about it. And, that's just the reality. But I think what the Lions do need is to bring back Zarius Smith at this point. I think he's got to be the next move. You got to bring back Zarius Smith. I mean, you're looking at Ahmed. I'm excited for him. I am. I like Ahmed. I love his effort. I love his mentality. I love his approach. There's a lot of things I like about him. His athleticism. He's not the biggest guy, but he's impactful. He makes plays. He has an upside because he's only been playing football a handful of years. But again, I talked earlier about the 3rd round pick thing. 6th round picks, I don't really have much of an expectation for. I don't. Even if your GM is Brad Holmes, because it's not fair to expect 6th round picks to just be excellent players because Brad Holmes selected them. It's okay. He's going to miss on players in the late rounds. You're just picking guys kind of out of a hat. You like some players, and if they're there, it's great. If they work out, awesome. If they don't, it's okay. So Ahmed, as much as I like him, I just want people to understand he was a 6th round pick. He is a project. Not now, how much of a project is a different argument. There's some people that believe he can contribute earlier. Guys, he's been playing football for like 5 years. You know what I mean? Let's just let this thing kind of play out here. He's going to the NFL. And he was playing at Boise State, which isn't the greatest competition. He's still productive, and I like him. Again, I'm just saying, let's just manage our expectations, because there's people that probably assume that he could be the answer next to Hutch, and let's just chill out. All right, let's just chill out a second. He's going to be a good role player. I don't know if he'll make a big impact year 1, but maybe year 2, or maybe at some points this year you see some Ahmed and he makes some plays, but it's not going to be something where it's like Ahmed bursts into the scene and he's DN2. So I think we got to let this thing kind of give him some time, give Ahmed some time. And I still really like him, but I don't want people to put unfair expectations on him. I just, because then you're going to be disappointed right away. Let's see. Tokyo says Ziggy Ansah didn't play football till his senior year of high school. That is true. And again, I'm not saying he can't make an impact. I just think people are like, well, there it is. We found DN2. Let's wrap it up. Let's pack it up. Go home. All right. We don't need it. No, we don't know that yet. Again, he's a 6th round pick. And I think he's someone that, with the right development, can turn out to be pretty good. Like Motown Mitch, Ahmed, 3rd year could be DN2 realistically. That's max, so I would think. I wouldn't mind it if year 2. We have to remember the Lions bring players along. It takes some time for guys. They bring them along, and then they start playing them more and more. Unless they're like, this isn't earlier in the Lions' tenure with Brad and Dan where they were just terrible and players had to just play right away. They have a good team. They don't need to rush Ahmed to play. They don't. He can just learn, play spots, play special teams, and then as the year goes on, you'll see where he's at. But they don't need to throw Ahmed out there and be like, hey, go produce. Now, he looked good against Penn State, Peter says. That is true. That is true. And I found that out 2 days ago, Saturday, when they drafted him. I was doing more research, and I watched the Penn State game, and I was like, oh, okay. He has those moments, but that's where the development comes into play. Is like he shows flashes, positive flashes. And the Lions have shown they can develop players. So you should be excited. You should be excited for him. Shift God said Zarius has leverage. His value has skyrocketed now. I mean, yeah, I'll say this about the Zarius thing, man. You do need him. You do need him back. I don't know how any Lions fan can feel comfortable with the thought of Marcus Davenport starting on week 1. I just don't know how you can feel comfortable. And that's the only thing I have pushed back on Brad was when he brought up the comment, like, you're only saying that because guys were hurt last year. I'm talking about edge. You're only bringing that up because guys are hurt. No, we're bringing it up because one of the players that was hurt has been hurt consistently. Like consistently. Like every year consistently. Like clockwork consistently. So that's why people bring it up, because the player that got hurt again. Davenport keeps getting hurt. And if we know this, then you know this, Brad. So it's not just because people just feel like bitching because there was injuries. They're bitching because an injury-prone player got injured. And that was DN2. That's what sucks. Hutchinson going down was a freak injury. I'm not even going to, that's not, it is what it is. But to have like Marcus Davenport as the linchpin because he's your DN2, and after that, you don't really have much. I mean, if AQM, okay, I like AQM, but is he going to be DN2 to win a Super Bowl? No, he's not. He's not. It's just how it is. He's not. You need a good pass rush, and you need someone that's a pretty stable DN2, and they don't really have that right now. Like I saw Mekhi Wingo, guys, I love Mekhi. I think he's better as like a 3-tech. I do like Mekhi Wingo. I don't think you line him up at edge and be like, all right, Mekhi, go cause havoc. I don't think that's what he's going to be. He's not really a pure edge. Marcus Davenport's probably, I mean, that's why you got to bring back Zarius. You just do. I'm sorry, you do. Last year, his production last year, if you get that type of, they haven't had that type of player since James Houston. They just haven't. He's been their most productive player aside from Hutch since James Houston. And James Houston did it in 1 year. So they need Zarius. And Brad talked about it after. They're not going to be done adding players. So I think Zarius should be top of the priority list. Definitely. Because him and Hutch would be great. And then you have some depth there. You have Marcus Davenport, who's there, but you're not relying on him to be there. Like if he goes down, you're like, okay, we have Zarius, who's actually been healthy for the past couple of years. I think he plays in 17 games. He's done that multiple times. And then Marcus Davenport's hurt every year. So you already know how it's going to end. So I just don't want to go through this thing again, where you go into the season and Brad goes, well, I'm pretty confident with what we have. Marcus Davenport starting at defensive end. And then we're in week 6 and he goes down because of some random injury. And now we're all pissed screaming at our computer screens or our cell phones. So Zarius should definitely be a priority. And I don't even think, I'm not even going to sit here and say, well, Brad failed the draft because he didn't address edge earlier. Because I like the players he took. I do. And I'm not going to ask Brad to reach on a player that, I'm not going to yell at the guy for reaching and not reaching on a player. It's not even about that. But you got to have an answer to this whole edge thing. You got to have some answer. And right now, the most clear answer is Zarius Smith. I don't really see another way here. I don't. Unless you could trade for someone. So it's not even about the draft. I just think the reality is you got good players through the draft. I like a lot of players. And by the way, I'm still going to go through a couple here because there's 2 more I haven't talked about, 3 more. But yeah, Zarius Smith needs to be in line. So make it happen. All right. Miles Frazier. They took him in the 5th round. Let's talk about Miles Frazier. I really like Miles Frazier, man. He's a very, very versatile player. Played mainly right guard, kind of like Tate Ratledge, but he played games at left tackle. He's played, I think, a couple snaps at right tackle. I want to see if he can play center. That's what I want to see. But Miles Frazier can do a lot of things. He's a player that should have went much earlier, and I don't really know why. To be honest with you guys, I don't know really the answer to that. I know the mahogany thing was like one leg shorter than the other, whatever the hell it is. But you know how many sacks Miles Frazier allowed last year? 0 sacks allowed. So, and he played some snaps at right tackle, played 800 plus snaps at right guard, played in the SEC, obviously. You know, played against Texas A&M with all that talent on the defensive line. So I think Miles Frazier may be the steal of the draft. An absolute steal. Like I'm excited for him because of his size, his versatility, his mentality. He's got great footwork. You know, I'm excited to see what they turn Miles Frazier into. And to be honest with you, the fact that you walk away with Tate Ratledge and Miles Frazier, I like that this offensive line's getting younger. I do. I really like that this offensive line's getting younger because Frank, even though he's not old, he's just dealing with a lot of things injury-wise. Taylor Decker's not getting any younger. Graham's not getting any younger. And then Panay and Mahogany. But Mahogany, I already talked about it earlier. I don't think he should be given that spot just because he played well in the game. I think you need to continue to add competition. And with that, you have 2 new young guards, one being very, very versatile that can come in, you know, add some competition to those guard spots, add some youth in the offensive line room. Like I like Miles Frazier, man. I thought it was a great pick. Someone that, you know, a lot of people mocked him to Detroit pretty often, and he fell to the 5th round. So as a 5th round player, that's a really good pick. It's a really good pick by Brad. All right, let's get to the 2 7th round picks. So first one, guys, Dan Jackson. The next Cooper DeJean. That's what Dan Jackson is. All right. Just a gritty player. But no, in all seriousness, I like Dan Jackson. I had to do more research on him. I've only seen his name. Just doing research on Malachi Starks. That's really the only reason. I've looked at Dan Jackson. To me is just basically what he's going to bring is just special teams. And that's probably it. I mean, I think he can maybe battle and play a little bit, but you know, I'm not going to sit here and have super high expectations for Dan Jackson. He gets his hands on a lot of footballs like Brad pointed to. I want to see how Dan Jackson goes. I want to see whether he really makes that safety depth. So I don't know much. Like I'm with you, Coach. I didn't watch Dan Jackson. The only time I saw Dan Jackson was when I was watching Malachi Starks, and I was like, I'll be like, oh, who's Dan Jackson? You know, he stood out, but I wasn't familiar with him. I really wasn't that familiar with him. So Dan Jackson, we'll see how that one turns out. Dominic Lovett. Am I crazy to be kind of excited for Dominic Lovett? I didn't know who, again, another player, wasn't familiar with him. So Dominic Lovett. And then I did more research, slot receiver, 5'10", 185. Super fast. I should say quick, very quick. And you know what he reminds me of? Kind of, he's a 7th round pick, and we've already seen another 7th round pick with Antoine Green not really work out. So I'm not going to sit here and say that this dude's going to be the next, you know, greatest thing since sliced bread. But what I will say about Dominic Lovett is he is going to be an excellent special teamer, kick return, punt return, whatever they want to use him as, because he's very quick. But he could be a future Khalif Raymond replacement. That's what I think could happen. And you look at his production, what he did at Georgia. You're like, wow, how did he make it to the 7th round? Like, he wasn't too bad at Georgia. I mean, you look at some of what he did. I mean, I think he had like 700 yards, 9 TDs, something like that at Georgia. And their quarterback position was unstable throughout the year. Let's see. I'll tell you exactly what he did. He had, and then he was transferred from Missouri, had 850 yards at Missouri, transferred to Georgia and had 600, 6 TDs. They gave him the ball at Missouri, let him run it a little bit. It's kind of what the Lions do with, Khalif Raymond. So I like it. Brad took 3 Georgia guys. So those SEC players. Dominic Lovett, Dan Jackson, and Tate Ratledge. And then you took an Ohio State defensive tackle, LSU. A lot of SEC in here, Arkansas. So, I think this draft class as a whole, if I had to give it a grade, I'd give it around a B+. I like a lot of these players. I think it's hard to give a grade. That's why I hate doing it, because you have to see how these players really age and what they turn into to give a grade. But you know how it is. After the draft, everyone gives grades. So, like, anyone that gives a Lions draft class like a low grade, tell them to go, go stick it. All right, because this, I don't know what to make of it. And I think giving a grade for any class is just stupid. But if I had to give one just based on paper and talent, face value, I'd probably go B+. Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested, or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, FisherCTSports.com.